Hi, it's Kramer from Visible's product support team. Today, I'm going to walk through how firms are using Visible's MCP server to help prepare for board meetings. In this example, I have an upcoming board meeting with my portfolio company, AquaCell. And this is how I'd use Visible's MCP server to walk into that board meeting fully prepared using the data that's in Visible and my AI tool. In this case, AquaCell shared their Q1 2026 board deck with me ahead of time. So I ran it through Visible's AI inbox, which parsed the deck, pulled out the key data, highlights and lowlights, and then saved this information to the metrics and notes inside the company's profile. Now with this key data inside Visible, the MCP server can query it directly. So let's walk through that. The first thing that I want to get a clear picture of is how revenue is tracking against targets. So I added the prompt, using Visible, show me quarterly revenue performance for AquaCell over the last year compared to their targets. And this is the output. So we can see that quarterly revenue grew steadily throughout 2025, peaking at $245K in Q4, and then pulling back to $225K in Q1 of 2026. That's roughly an 8% decline quarter over quarter. And when you put that against their target of $235K in Q1, we can see that they missed by 10K overall. And that's an important drop for a company of this size. So I'll continue on to a new prompt to better understand how the company is explaining this. Having already parsed AquaCell's board deck through the AI inbox, I can also ask about qualitative information directly. So I added the prompt based on the most recent board update from AquaCell. What were their key highlights and challenges? And this is where importing that deck with the AI inbox is so valuable because the response pulls directly from the deck. On the highlights side, AquaCell signed an enterprise client, they increased their cash positions, and they also launched a new product. As for challenges, we do see that revenue decline is coming up, and it's explained by a one-time billing issue. They also mentioned that the sales cycle has lengthened and 2 enterprise deals were pushed into the next quarter, and they discussed retention initiatives being a potential issue, which connects to what I want to look into next. So since churn was flagged, I want to make sure to dig a little bit deeper into that. So I added the prompt, what do churn trends look like over the last several quarters for AquaCell? And what does it mean for their gross dollar retention? And this data tells a clear story. We can see that churn has stabilized around 20,000 throughout 2025, and Q1 of 2026 is similar at 22K. But with ARR at 343K annually, 22K in quarterly churn is meaningful because that's roughly 6% of ARR that's at risk every quarter if it's not offset by expansion. So the enterprise contracts that they signed this quarter should help, but retention initiatives need to be addressed. And this is a conversation that's going to be worth having in the upcoming board meeting. What is the retention playbook and when should we expect to see results? I also want to get a clear view of Runway. So I've added in an additional prompt here, which is based on the current cash balance, burn rate, and their plan to raise a Series A, how much runway does AquaCell have and when do they need to start the process? So from this query, we can see that cash reserves sit at 1.2 million, which the board deck actually notes is the company's strongest cash position in the past 3 quarters. And then we can also see that they have 15 months of runway. So really, the timing is key here, because if management is targeting a Series A in Q4 of 2026, a typical raise takes about 6 months from first conversation to close. So they need to be in the market by Q2 at the latest. And that window is right now. So this is not an abstract future agenda item. It's something to put on the table in this meeting and then align on a clear plan to get started. So now I actually want to zoom out and see how AquaCell stacks up against comparable companies within their space. And rather than doing this research manually, I can actually ask the MCP server to pull AquaCell's data and then benchmark it across publicly available information. So I added in this prompt. Based on current revenue, team size, ARR, and fundraising stage, how does AquaCell compare to other early stage water technology and renewable infrastructure companies at a similar point in their journey? And this prompt combines 2 sources at once. So on one side, the MCP server is pulling AquaCell's live data from Visible, ARR, quarterly revenue, team size, and the fundraising stage. On the other side, it's reaching out to publicly available data to find comparable companies and then benchmark those figures against them. And what comes back gives you a genuine market perspective. How does AquaCell's ARR growth rate compare to their peers at a similar stage? Is their headcount size of 29 similar to other pre-Series A companies within this sector? How does their fundraising timeline align against other water tech companies that have done this similar process of raising a Series A? This is the kind of benchmarking context that is exactly what founders expect their investors to bring to the table. It shows that your team has done the work, and it gives the board conversation a frame of reference that goes beyond just the internal numbers that the company has shared. And that's the full workflow. The board deck came in through the AI inbox, and then that data lived in Visible. From there, the MCP server connects it all so I can ask the AI direct questions and walk into that meeting fully prepared with quantitative data, as well as qualitative context and a clear view of what is at stake financially. I don't have to export anything, there's no manual cross-referencing, and I definitely don't have to scramble the morning of. So get started by connecting your AI tool to Visible and start using the MCP server today.